Hi, welcome to the Dreamy Lab. Today we dive into the topic, how music hijacks memory and emotion. You begin in silence, where attention breathes and anticipation hums. Before music plays, your brain is already listening, already remembering. In this stillness, your mind opens to meaning, to story, to sound. Here, music prepares to whisper to your emotions. There is a kind of stillness that lives just before sound, a pause so soft you barely notice it, but deep enough to hold your entire attention. It is not the silence of nothingness, but the quiet of something approaching. The breath before the words. The hush before the curtain rises. Your body feels it before your mind does. The moment holds a strange kind of weight, like the sky just before a storm, or the space between two heartbeats. You lie still, and the world holds its breath with you. This is the moment before the music begins. Your mind becomes alert, not with worry or thought, but with listening. Not to voices or words, but to possibility. Your ears are open, but more than that, your awareness is open. The auditory cortex begins to stir, even without a single sound. Your nervous system begins adjusting, not reacting, but receiving. This moment before the music is not empty. It is full of anticipation, full of ancient expectation that something beautiful is about to happen. The brain leans into that expectation. It reaches, not for understanding, but for connection. Long before you hear it, music is already taking shape inside you. Your mind is rehearsing a feeling, preparing to welcome something it cannot see, something it cannot name. This readiness is woven into your biology. From the very beginning, even in the womb, you learned to listen. Before you spoke, you listened. Before you thought in language, you felt in tone. The heartbeat of the person who carried you became your first rhythm. The rise and fall of breath, the murmurs of life outside your world, all of it was music before it was meaning. Now, lying still in your quiet space, you feel that again. That same early listening. The room may be silent, but something inside you stirs. The skin becomes aware of air. The muscles soften. Your breath changes its shape. Your whole self is preparing, not because a sound has come, but because it will. That's the magic of this pause, it is filled with what hasn't happened yet. It is rich with unseen motion. It is the calm surface of a deep pool, waiting for the first ripple. And so your mind, so often busy, quiets itself. It turns away from the past and the future and leans gently into this moment, this space between moments. Your thoughts do not race. They slow. They stretch. There is no urgency here. Only readiness. Only soft attention. This is where music finds its home, not in sound waves alone, but in a mind open enough to receive them. Music needs a listener, and you, in this moment, become exactly that. You may begin to notice the way your body prepares to hear. The way your spine relaxes. The way your breathing deepens, almost without effort. The way your heart settles into a slower rhythm, a rhythm that feels like trust. Even before you hear anything, you are already resonating. Already attuned. The body understands music as more than entertainment, it feels it as a kind of safety. A kind of homecoming. And so, in the stillness, it says, I'm ready. This readiness has ancient roots. Across time and culture, music begins in stillness. In the silence before a drumbeat, before a chant, before a single note is sung. That stillness is not an absence, it is a signal. It tells the listener to prepare. To listen not just with ears, but with the full body. To listen with memory. With emotion. With presence. You may not remember the first time you heard a lullaby, but your nervous system does. You may not recall the first melody that brought you peace, but your body has kept the rhythm. Even now, your brain is activating more than just your hearing. The areas connected to memory begin to stir. The parts of the brain that process emotion begin to light up. The anticipation of music wakes them gently, like sunlight slowly warming a darkened room. You may find yourself remembering something, or feeling something without knowing why. A sensation, a face, a moment from long ago. Music hasn't begun yet, but something has begun in you. There is something sacred in that. This internal opening. This shift from thinking to feeling. You are not analyzing, you are welcoming. You are not solving, you are softening. And in that softening, the brain becomes something more than a computer. It becomes a resonator. A temple. A quiet field waiting for the wind. And when music finally arrives, it won't land on empty ground, it will be held. This is why concerts begin with silence. Why lullabies are whispered in darkness. Why the most moving music always seems to emerge from stillness. Sound needs silence the way stars need night. Without silence, there is no space to listen. And without the moment before, there is no moment at all. So now you wait, gently. Not with tension, but with a kind of reverence. You are at the edge of something. Not a cliff, but a sunrise. Something is about to begin, and it will begin with you. It will begin in the way your breath matches the tempo. In the way your chest rises to meet the rhythm. In the way your thoughts step aside so your feelings can speak. And when the first note finally arrives, soft or strong, slow or sudden, it will not surprise you. It will feel familiar. Like a returning friend. Like a memory coming home. Because in truth, it began before it sounded. It began in your silence. In your readiness. But what happens when the music doesn't stop at your ears, when it slips past logic and moves straight into feeling? What happens when it bypasses thought entirely, and settles into your body like a dream? You wonder why music moves you so deeply when you don't even try to understand it. That's because it doesn't knock at the door of your thoughts, it walks straight in. Your brain listens with emotion first, logic later, if at all. Melody finds the paths feeling has carved long ago. Sound enters you before you've thought about it. Before a single word rises, before your attention can label or analyze, the music is already inside. It doesn't wait for the gates of logic to open, it never needed permission. It flows through you like water through fingers, unresisted. It slips past language, past names, past the tidy compartments of your conscious mind and goes straight to where feeling lives. When the first note is played, you are no longer simply hearing, you are feeling. And that feeling doesn't ask for explanation. The brain, as miraculous as it is, doesn't greet sound with pure intellect. Not at first. Your auditory cortex lights up, yes, but so does your limbic system, the seat of emotion. So does your amygdala, which senses the emotional temperature of the world. So does your hippocampus, keeper of memory. Music is received not as a data stream, but as a whole-body sensation, part memory, part pulse, part breath. It's not that logic is absent, it's just not the first to arrive. Like a late guest to a gathering, reason enters after the room is already warm. And in that warmth, something subtle happens. You don't just hear the music, you inhabit it. A soft chord changes the light inside your chest. A minor note passes like a cloud over your mood. A melody tugs gently at a memory you didn't know was still close by. And you let it happen, because it feels true, even if you cannot say why. Music does not wait for you to understand it, it lets you feel that you already do. And so, in the soft flicker of piano keys or the lift of a violin, emotion floods the spaces language can't reach. Even your heartbeat listens. Without your awareness, it adjusts. It echoes the pace of the rhythm. It quickens when the tempo rises, softens when the notes stretch and linger. This is no coincidence. Your autonomic nervous system is quietly obeying the patterns it detects. Music becomes not just something outside you, but something you respond to. Something you merge with. And still, no explanation is necessary. You are not thinking the music, you are being it. Science tells us that music activates networks in the brain that overlap with motor regions, memory centers, and emotional processors. But you don't need to know the names of those structures to experience them. You already do. You experience them when a song makes your limbs want to move without instruction. When a sound brings tears before you've formed a single thought. When a familiar tune wraps you in a comfort so complete it feels like returning home. This is the brilliance of music's design, it isn't confined to intellect. It lives in sensation, in rhythm, in vibration. Your brain is not a passive receiver, it is a living, resonating instrument. And music knows exactly how to play it. It finds those old pathways carved by childhood lullabies, by the hum of a parent's voice, by the ambient sounds of your earliest days. It reactivates them, not to remind you with words, but with feeling. It awakens something old. Something deep. Consider the chill that rises up your spine when a note bends just so. The involuntary blink when a harmony resolves with aching precision. These reactions are not scripted, they are reflexes. Emotional reflexes. The body remembering something that the conscious mind forgot. You are not interpreting the music. You are responding with your whole being. Like a field responding to rain. The strangest part is, even unfamiliar music can move you. Even sounds from another culture, another language, another time. You don't need to know the words or recognize the structure. Your brain listens beneath all that. It listens for tone, for texture, for emotional direction. It finds feeling in the shape of sound. It maps meaning onto the curve of a note, the tension of a pause, the softness of a landing. And without a single conscious thought, you know how to feel. This bypass is beautiful. It's gentle. It's powerful. You're no longer a distant observer of experience, you're inside it. Music becomes a shared space between what is played and what is felt. It creates a kind of emotional bridge between the world and your inner life. And as it plays, it draws from you not just memories, but dreams, longings, and unspoken hopes. You are more than a listener. You are a vessel. A resonator. And perhaps this is why music helps you cry when you need to. Or lifts you when you feel low. It doesn't speak in commands, it reminds your body how to feel fully. To process emotion without having to name it. It's like therapy without language. It enters your nervous system, gently rearranging it. Softening what is clenched. Warming what has gone cold. Clarifying what had grown tangled. You do not need to think about this for it to work. You only need to listen. To allow. To notice. And in that noticing, the brain, without effort, returns to a kind of balance. You don't have to decode the song to benefit from its presence. You only have to be still. The music will find you. The feeling will come. And it will come in waves, not all at once, but in slow, circling spirals, the way thought becomes dream and dream becomes rest. And when it finally fades, when the last note lingers in the air, you realize the logic never arrived. It was never needed. The experience spoke in its own fluent, emotional language. You didn't think your way through it. You felt your way home. And what happens when that feeling begins to call up memories, when melody becomes a bridge to the past? How does music remember what you've forgotten? When you listen to music, something extraordinary happens inside your brain. A signal, simple at first, a vibration of air, passes into your ears, slips through the curled tunnel of the cochlea, and turns into electrical pulses. But from that ordinary beginning, the journey becomes something else entirely. Those pulses don't just light up the hearing center. They ripple outward, activating areas you may not expect, places responsible for movement, memory, imagination, pleasure, even fear. It is as if the sound finds a hidden switchboard deep within you, one that quietly hums to life the moment a melody begins. This is where emotion awakens, not suddenly, not explosively, but like soft light spreading through a dim hallway. Your brain has no single location for emotion. Instead, it weaves a network, subtle, layered, always flowing, that reacts, adapts, and remembers. Music dances across this network with grace. A minor chord brushes the amygdala, the almond-shaped center of emotional intensity, and suddenly you feel your chest tighten, as if sadness has passed through. A rising swell of strings may stir the nucleus accumbens, your reward center, and you feel pleasure rise like warmth in your body. Meanwhile, the hippocampus, guardian of memory, awakens to the familiar notes of a childhood song, and a scene from long ago flickers across your inner vision. These reactions are not imagined. They are real. They are wired. Your brain is alive with signals, music is the electricity that carries them. And it all happens so quickly. Within milliseconds of hearing a tone, your emotional system begins to shape your response. Even without lyrics, even without conscious thought, you are already feeling the sound. The brain doesn't wait for language, it reacts to patterns, rhythm, pitch, volume, and harmony. These elements, ancient and universal, speak directly to your emotional core. In fact, the very structures that decode the tone of someone's voice, their anger, joy, sorrow, are the same ones that interpret music. Your brain hears emotion in sound before it hears meaning in words. Imagine now a control room inside your mind, not a sterile place of buttons and wires, but a soft, glowing space where each emotional response is shaped. This control room is made not of walls, but of pathways. Some were carved early, long before you had words. Others were built from repetition, strengthened by experiences that meant something. A parent's hum. A song played in the car on rainy days. The music at your first dance. All of these became embedded in the switchboard. Now, when sound enters, it travels these paths effortlessly. It doesn't need to ask your permission. It follows the trails laid down by memory, by association, by feeling. And the reaction, the tears, the joy, the aching, the peace, seems to come from nowhere. But it comes from here. From this living map. What's astonishing is how much of this system runs beneath your awareness. You may believe you are simply enjoying a song, but your brain is performing a kind of emotional symphony behind the scenes. It is filtering, connecting, anticipating. It's matching tones to emotions, patterns to stories. If the melody slows and the harmony shifts, it may signal sadness. If the tempo rises and the key brightens, it might mean hope. These aren't rules you had to learn, your brain evolved to read these emotional cues. It does so naturally, gracefully. The emotional switchboard is never static. It is always tuning, always listening. You may feel, at times, that your emotions catch you off guard, a song makes you cry, even when you're not sure why. But this, too, is the brain at work. Sometimes a chord progression awakens a memory stored far below the surface, something not remembered in words, but in sensation. A childhood voice. The texture of a particular afternoon. The shape of a goodbye. The emotional switchboard draws from all of it. Not logically, but organically. It selects from the full library of your life, choosing moments that resonate, that harmonize with what the music suggests. And suddenly, without explanation, you feel. Even the body listens. The vagus nerve, a long, winding thread connecting brain to heart to lungs to gut, responds to sound. It softens the heart rate, deepens the breath. When music touches emotion, it also touches physiology. You are not just moved in spirit, you are moved in form. Tears come. Muscles loosen. Skin tingles. This is not metaphor. It is biology. It is the emotional switchboard sending signals not just across synapses, but down the spine, into the breath, through the bloodstream. This is how music heals, not by changing your thoughts, but by shifting your internal rhythms, gently, like wind moving across water. And yet, none of this feels mechanical. That's the beauty of it. Even though we know these processes, even though neuroscience has mapped the circuits, charted the chemicals, traced the paths, the experience itself still feels like magic. Because no two people experience a song the same way. The same melody might bring one person peace, another sorrow. The emotional switchboard is unique in each of us, shaped by our stories, our wiring, our wounds. It is deeply personal. And yet, somehow, deeply universal. This paradox, that music is both uniquely yours and unmistakably ours, is part of what makes it so powerful. And so when you listen to music at night, in quiet, in stillness, what you're really doing is letting this switchboard hum without resistance. You're allowing your emotions to rise without labels, your memories to flicker without judgment. You're saying, yes, I feel. Yes, I remember. Yes, I'm alive. You don't need to analyze what the music means. You only need to notice how it moves you. How it colors the shadows inside your mind. How it stirs the soft layers of your being. And maybe, in that gentle stirring, there is a kind of relief. A sense that you are not trapped by logic, by language, by explanation. That you are allowed to simply feel, and that feeling is enough. The emotional switchboard does not demand clarity. It asks only for openness. It rewards presence. And in return, it offers something precious, the chance to connect, with yourself, with your past, with the world, and sometimes, with something greater. Music, then, is not just entertainment. It is emotional architecture. It builds bridges between systems, stories, sensations. It reveals how deeply you are wired for beauty. For resonance. For connection. The brain switchboard is not just mechanical, it is poetic. And music knows how to speak its language. But what if that switchboard connects not just feeling to sound, but feeling to memory? What happens when music becomes the thread that leads you back to something you forgot you lost? Music doesn't just echo your emotions, it holds your memories, often more faithfully than words. A song can unfold a scene long forgotten, can lift a scent, a face, a feeling from deep within. You don't always remember the moment, but the music does. It has been carrying the pieces for you, quietly, gently, all along. There are moments in life that fade softly from your memory, not because they were unimportant, but because they lived too quietly to leave sharp outlines. A warm afternoon. A glance in a doorway. The sound of wind through a half-open window. These moments drift, tucked into the corners of time, waiting. And then, one day, a song plays. A melody slips through the air, and you are back there. Not in thought, but in feeling. Not in memory, but in presence. Your chest tightens. Your eyes prick. You remember, not by trying, but by hearing. Music remembers for you. It holds what your conscious mind lets go of. Because while your brain forgets, it also stores. It stores through association, not alphabet. Through sensation, not filing cabinets. That moment, that small one, the one you thought was gone, is tied not to the date, not to the place, but to the way a chord fell, or the way a harmony rose. Music binds emotion to sound in such a way that they cannot be easily untangled. A song becomes the memory's scent, its color, its texture. And when the song returns, the memory is there too, full-bodied, alive, unchanged. You felt it before, the sudden wave of nostalgia when an old song plays by accident. How your breath catches. How the room seems to shift, just slightly. That's because the hippocampus, which guards memory, and the amygdala, which governs emotion, both light up at once when familiar music begins. They recognize the combination. They activate the pathway. And like a hallway you didn't know still existed, the past opens. Music is not just background to your life, it is woven into the fabric of it. Your brain ties sound to experience almost automatically. The first dance. The road trip. The night of heartbreak. The scent of winter air mixed with a piano tune. These are not stored in folders. They are stored in soundscapes. And those soundscapes live in you like pressed flowers in a book. Quiet. Waiting. Intact. Even when words fail, music can bring the memory back whole. For those with memory loss, even in advanced age, a song from youth can reopen doors that daily life cannot. Faces return. Movements. Laughter. The neural path that was silent lights up with music. It's as if the sound carries a lantern, illuminating the way home. But this doesn't only happen in illness. It happens to you, all the time. Music slips beneath the layers of forgetting. It pulls feeling upward like roots drawing water from deep soil. A few notes can conjure the shape of a day. A rhythm can call back a season of your life. Even songs you haven't heard in years feel somehow near. Because they've never truly left. They've been folded into your emotional body, tucked safely into the folds. And the body listens too. Notice the way your shoulders relax when you hear a familiar melody. How your breathing slows. How your posture changes. Your body recognizes the memory even before your mind does. That's the subtle beauty of musical memory, it bypasses thought and goes straight to recognition. Not of facts, but of feeling. Of warmth. Of safety. Or sorrow. Or wonder. Some songs become maps. They guide you to a part of yourself you forgot you had. A feeling you thought you'd outgrown. A truth you no longer name but still feel. And some songs become anchors. They hold you in place when everything else is adrift. They remind you of who you were when you first heard them. Of how far you've traveled since. Of what still matters. And sometimes, a song carries a memory not just of what happened, but of who you were in the moment it happened. A younger self, a different self. One more open, or more afraid, or more hopeful. The music reintroduces you. It allows you to meet yourself again, not with judgment, but with gentleness. To witness your own becoming. There is a tenderness in that. A grace. Because when the song returns, you're not just remembering, you're re-inhabiting. You are re-entering a room inside you, long closed, but never emptied. You feel it in the way your skin tingles. In the way your thoughts fall silent. In the way your heart steps quietly into rhythm. The song is not just playing, it is holding you. This is why we return to certain songs again and again. They are more than music, they are containers. They hold not just sound, but time. They become safe houses for memories that are too precious to misplace. And when you press play, you are opening that door. You are stepping in. You are saying to your past self, I remember. I remember you. And the music answers, I never forgot. Even now, as you listen, you may feel a shape inside your chest. A warmth. A ache. A breath caught between yesterday and now. That is memory stirred by sound. That is the emotional truth of your own timeline becoming present again. And you don't need to name the moment. You only need to feel its echo. The song has done its work. You may wonder how many other memories live this way, tucked inside songs you haven't heard in years. You may wonder what else waits to be unlocked. What joy, what sorrow, what love, what peace. And you don't have to search. The music will come when it's ready. It will find you, as it always has, in a quiet moment, when your heart is soft enough to listen. So now, as the final notes of this chapter fade, let yourself rest in that space between memory and music. Let your body remember without trying. Let the songs continue to carry the stories too tender for words. Because they do. They always have. But how exactly does music do this? What is it about rhythm and repetition that gives sound its power to shape memory and meaning? Even before you understand words, your body understands rhythm. Heartbeat, breath, footsteps, this is your first language, written in time. Your brain doesn't just hear rhythm, it speaks it. It finds safety in pattern, beauty in timing, and memory in motion. Long before you had language, you had rhythm. Before you could speak, before you could even see the world clearly, you were moving in time. Floating in the womb, you were rocked by breath, cradled by pulse. The mother's heartbeat became your first drum. The rise and fall of her voice became your first melody. Even now, long after you've learned speech, it is rhythm, not words, that remains your brain's most ancient and trusted language. You may not always notice it, but rhythm is everywhere inside you. Your heart beats in steady cycles, your breath dances in and out, your stomach churns, your eyes blink in patterns. Even your thoughts fire in waves. The brain is a rhythmic organ, always pulsing, always timing. It is not randomness that makes us feel alive, it is pattern. Predictable, repeating, comforting rhythm. The kind of order that the body recognizes as safe. And when music arrives, it speaks this native language perfectly. Your brain listens to rhythm not just with the ears, but with the entire motor system. Even if you're lying still, your body prepares to move. Muscles quietly engage. The cerebellum, your coordination center, begins to pulse. The basal ganglia, deeply embedded in your brain, start aligning your inner metronome with the outer beat. You may not tap your foot. You may not nod your head. But something inside you does. You are syncing without effort. There is something profoundly calming about this. When the beat is steady, the mind steadies too. It stops drifting. It stops doubting. It begins to trust. A slow rhythm can calm the nervous system, slow the heartbeat, and bring the brain into a restful state. This is why lullabies work. Why chants calm the breath? Why the slow repetition of soft music in the dark can carry you gently into sleep? The brain does not need to understand the music to be moved by it, it simply needs to feel the rhythm. And rhythm is more than movement. It is also memory. Your brain uses rhythm to store and retrieve information. That's why we remember songs we haven't heard in decades, why we sing along to lyrics we thought we'd forgotten. Rhythm gives structure to memory. It wraps words in a pattern that the brain can hold on to. This is why we learn the alphabet as a song. Why poetry is easier to memorize than prose. The beat carries the meaning. Deep in the folds of your brain, the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex work together to mark time. They track when things happen, not just what happened. And rhythm helps them keep the order straight. It's like music drops breadcrumbs across time, and when we listen, we follow those crumbs back through memory. This is why a song can bring not just an image, but a sequence, a story, a moment unfolding in order. You are not just remembering, you are reliving. Children show us this truth effortlessly. Watch how a baby responds to a drumbeat. They bounce, they sway, they laugh. There's no hesitation, no instruction. The response is immediate, natural. The rhythm speaks directly to the body. It calls to something deep and ancient. It says, you know me. You've always known me. Even the language centers of the brain rely on rhythm. When you speak, your words follow a beat. Each syllable lands in time. Your brain expects this timing, it predicts it. And that's part of what makes rhythm feel so satisfying. The brain loves prediction. It finds pleasure in guessing what's next and being right. That little burst of dopamine when a beat lands exactly where you expect it. That's the reward of rhythm. That's the joy of alignment. But the magic of rhythm is not just in perfect timing. It's in variation. In the tiny surprises. In syncopation. In the gentle shift that breaks the pattern just enough to make you lean in, just enough to make you feel. The brain craves this too, a balance between structure and surprise. Music offers both. It comforts you with repetition, then wakes you with change. It's a conversation between stability and curiosity. And your brain listens to both sides. There's a reason why rhythmic repetition is used in meditation, in healing, in ceremony. From Gregorian chants to Sufi whirling, from tribal drumming to modern mantras, humans have always turned to rhythm when they need to ground themselves. The steady beat becomes a tether. It holds the mind in place. It quiets the storm of thoughts. It says, stay here. You are safe in this pattern. You are not alone. In clinical settings, rhythm is used to help those with neurological conditions. Patients with Parkinson's disease can move more freely when walking to a rhythmic cue. Stroke survivors often regain speech more effectively through melodic intonation therapy, which uses rhythm and tone to rebuild language. Even in the face of injury, the brain still responds to rhythm. It is the music that leads it back. And for those struggling with trauma, rhythm can be a lifeline. Because trauma often scrambles time, it makes memory jagged, scattered. But rhythm reintroduces sequence. It gives the mind something solid to hold on to. It's as if music says, you are here. Now. In this moment. And this moment is steady. Your body knows this truth even if your mind does not. That's why slow music helps you sleep. Why calming rhythms ease anxiety. Why a heartbeat drum can quiet the nervous system. Rhythm is not just sound, it's structure. It is the body's oldest architecture of peace. And so, when you listen to music as you drift towards sleep, what you're really doing is returning. Returning to the language your body has always spoken. You are letting the rhythm take over the part of you that worries, that plans, that questions. You are letting it hold you, carry you. Each beat is a footstep on a quiet path. Each repetition is a breath that says, rest. Be still. You're safe. It doesn't matter what genre you prefer. Classical. Jazz. Lo-fi. Ambient. All of them speak rhythm. All of them offer a pulse, a pattern. A way for your brain to walk gently into calm. Even silence between notes holds rhythm, the spacing, the pause. The brain counts it all. It responds to it all. And it says, quietly, I understand this. This understanding doesn't have to be explained. It doesn't have to be translated. It is older than language, older than stories. It is cellular. Primal. The beat of life itself. So as the music continues in your mind tonight, slow, quiet, wrapping around you like a warm blanket, know that it's not just lulling you to sleep. It's speaking to you in the first language you ever knew. The language of rhythm. The pulse of time. The music of your body remembering how to feel safe. But what if rhythm could do more than calm you? What if it could reshape you, rewire your brain, rebuild your patterns, and open you to something entirely new? Your brain is not a fixed machine, it's more like a garden, always pruning, always growing. And music is one of its most powerful tools for change. With each note, each rhythm, the brain adapts, rewires, renews. You are not just hearing music, you are being reshaped by it. The brain you wake up with is not quite the same brain you fell asleep with. It is always changing, always listening, always adapting. Connections are made, others quietly trimmed. New paths form, old ones fade. This quiet process, invisible and constant, is called neuroplasticity. And music is one of its gentlest, most potent tools. Your brain is a creature of pattern, but it is not locked in stone. Its neurons shift like branches reaching toward light. Synapses strengthen with use. The more a path is walked, the more likely it is to be walked again. The more a sound is repeated, the more deeply it is learned. This is why a melody can become second nature. Why a rhythm can echo in your mind for days. The music builds trails in your mind, and your thoughts begin to follow them. Even simple listening shapes you. When you hear a song, your auditory cortex begins its work, sorting frequencies, mapping tone. But the process doesn't stop there. Motor regions activate, preparing you to move. Emotional centers light up. Memory circuits begin to hum. Every layer of the brain begins to communicate. New connections fire. The act of listening becomes an act of integration. And if you make music, if you hum, tap, sing, play, the changes go even deeper. Musicians often have larger corpus callosums, the bundle of fibers that links the brain's two hemispheres. Playing an instrument strengthens the motor cortex, fine-tunes the auditory system, enhances memory. But you don't have to be a professional to benefit. Even softly singing along to a melody or keeping time with your fingers invites the brain to grow. Repetition is key. The brain learns through loops. And music is a master of looping. A chorus that returns again and again. A verse that echoes in a slightly new form. A rhythm that guides your breath. The more you hear it, the more the brain responds. Like footsteps on a trail, repetition turns novelty into familiarity, and familiarity into habit. This is how the music you love becomes part of you. And music is forgiving. If a pathway in the brain has been damaged, by stroke, by injury, by age, music often finds a way around it. It creates new detours, alternate routes. This is the beauty of plasticity, the ability to adapt. Patients who cannot speak after a stroke sometimes learn to sing. Those with memory loss may forget names but remember songs. Music finds what still works and builds upon it. But neuroplasticity is not just for healing, it is also for becoming. When you hear new sounds, new instruments, new patterns, your brain stretches to accommodate them. It tries to predict, to understand, to learn. Even the act of being surprised by music is part of the shaping. A key change, a sudden silence, a swelling harmony, all of it keeps the brain alive and alert. Every surprise is a small stretch, a new possibility. Music also reshapes your emotions. Just as it once encoded the feeling of a moment, it can now reframe it. A song that once brought sadness might, years later, bring peace. The emotional memory stays, but its meaning changes. This is neuroplasticity at work, not just in neurons, but in perception. The same notes, new understanding. The same rhythm, new resonance. And then there's rhythm's deeper influence, its power to regulate. The brain seeks synchronization. When it hears a steady beat, it begins to match its own waves to it. Alpha rhythms, those gentle, meditative brain waves, often rise in response to music. Your nervous system softens. Your thoughts slow. If the rhythm is stable, your inner world becomes more stable too. This creates space for new thoughts, new feelings, new ways of being. Think of the brain like a landscape of sand. Each thought is a finger tracing a groove. The more it repeats, the deeper the groove becomes. Some grooves are helpful. Others, like anxiety, fear, or self-doubt, may have been worn in over time. But music can introduce new lines, new textures. It doesn't erase the old grooves, but it gives you new ones to follow. It invites the brain to wander, to play, to try. This is why certain music can lift you out of a thought spiral. Why a peaceful melody can pause anxiety, even if just for a few moments. It offers another path. And if you return to that music, again and again, the path deepens. Your brain begins to choose it more easily. In this way, music becomes not just an experience, but a tool. A companion. A quiet architect of change. Neuroplasticity also thrives on emotion. The more emotionally charged a moment, the more likely it is to be remembered. And music is almost always emotional. It doesn't just accompany your moods, it shapes them. It amplifies joy, comforts sorrow, holds space for grief. When you pair sound with feeling, the brain listens more carefully. It says, "This matters. Remember this." And so it does. Even in sleep, the brain responds to music. Soft sound can guide dream cycles, improve rest, and promote the slow-wave rhythms that restore memory. You may not be aware of it, but your brain is still listening. Still learning. Still reshaping. And the music you drift off to becomes part of that night's subtle rearrangement. So tonight, as you let the melody move gently through your ears, know that something deeper is happening. You are not just passing time. You are participating in your own reshaping. In your own becoming. The music is not decoration, it is direction. Not escape, but return. You do not have to control it. You do not have to force it. All you have to do is listen, and trust that the brain is listening too. That it is growing in ways you cannot see. That it is weaving new paths, healing old ones, discovering new rhythms of thought and feeling. You are not stuck. You are not fixed. You are being rewritten, note by note. And maybe, without realizing it, you've already changed. A thought that once troubled you now feels quieter. A fear that once ruled you feels smaller. You found a new place to stand, even if just for a moment. This is what music makes possible. Gentle, lasting change. And now, we begin to wonder. What is it, exactly, about melody, the rise and fall of pitch, that seems to pull so directly on the heartstrings? Melody is not just sound, it's emotion, sculpted in air. It rises when you hope, falls when you grieve, lingers when you remember. Your brain follows these curves like paths across a landscape of feeling. Each note, a soft signal, here is joy, here is sorrow, here is longing. A single note, on its own, is only a dot in space. But when one note follows another, something changes. A melody is born, a line begins to form in the air. It doesn't just rise and fall randomly. It arcs, it flows, it bends with meaning. It becomes something you recognize, not through language, but through feeling. Melody is music's voice, and emotion is its accent. Your brain is tuned to follow melodic shape. It listens for direction, for motion, for contour. When a note rises upward, your brain senses anticipation, energy, perhaps even hope. When it falls, it may signal rest, resolution, or sometimes sadness. These meanings aren't assigned arbitrarily, they come from your nervous system, from breath, from speech. When people are excited, their pitch rises. When they're tired, or sad, their voices fall. Melody mimics this emotional language, and your brain responds as if it were hearing someone speak, not in words, but in feeling. This is why you can feel the emotion in a song even if you don't understand the lyrics. A plaintive violin. A soaring flute. A piano melody that circles gently, like a thought you can't quite forget. These sounds don't describe emotions, they embody them. They allow you to feel without explanation. Without defense. You are not told how to feel. You simply do. The auditory cortex processes melody with precision. But it doesn't work alone. The limbic system, which governs emotional response, joins in almost immediately. The brain reads melody not just for pitch, but for meaning. Is this safe? Is it sad? Is it joyful? It matches the melodic shape to emotional memory. To personal experience. And very quickly, it forms an internal echo, a feeling inside your chest that matches the rise and fall outside. Melodies also carry your attention gently. They guide it like a riverbank, shaping its course. A good melody doesn't just repeat, it evolves. It may climb, hesitate, descend, then lift again. This subtle dance keeps your mind engaged without tension. There's no need to concentrate, your brain follows naturally. It trusts the curve. This trust is part of why melody can soothe you. It offers a journey you don't need to steer. In lullabies, this journey is especially gentle. The pitch moves slowly, predictably. The intervals are small. Nothing startles. Everything resolves. The melody becomes like a rocking chair, back and forth, up and down, until the child drifts into sleep. And even as adults, we respond to the same patterns. A soft melody at night tells the nervous system, you are safe. You can let go now. But melody also carries memory. Just as rhythm anchors words in time, melody anchors emotion in space. You may hear a certain tune and feel something you can't quite name, a mixture of longing and joy, or sadness wrapped in peace. This is the result of emotional layering. Over time, your brain associates certain melodies with certain feelings. A familiar phrase of music becomes a shortcut to that emotional state. It doesn't need permission. It just opens the door. Melody is also a tool of storytelling. In film scores, the rise of melody signals transformation. A hero's theme begins simply, grows, then swells at the moment of triumph. In your own life, the songs you return to often carry this same narrative structure. The climb, the pause, the fall, the return. Your brain maps these arcs to your own. It hears not just sound, but story. And yet, melody doesn't need to be grand to move you. Sometimes, a simple three-note phrase can carry more emotion than an entire symphony. This is because of tension and release. Melody often builds a question into the music, a rising line that feels unfinished. Your brain anticipates the next note, and when the melody finally resolves, you feel relief. A sense of coming home. This interaction between expectation and fulfillment is the secret architecture of melody. The brain is soothed when things fall into place. But melody can also do the opposite. It can delay resolution. It can linger in dissonance. It can hover in uncertainty. These moments are not uncomfortable, they are powerful. They reflect the complexity of real emotion. Not all sadness ends in joy. Not all longing finds fulfillment. Sometimes the melody pauses mid-sentence, and the feeling lingers in the space between. The brain doesn't fight this, it embraces it. It recognizes its own truth in it. In therapy, melody is sometimes used to explore emotions that words cannot reach. Singing a line of melody can release emotion stored deep in the body. The shape of the music speaks directly to the nervous system. It allows emotion to rise safely, to move, to soften. Melody becomes not just sound, but breath, not just music, but medicine. In your daily life, you've likely felt this power without needing to name it. A melody on the radio that makes you cry without warning. A theme from a movie that stays in your chest for days. A song that lifts your mood just by entering the room. These are not accidents. They are echoes of the brain's melodic memory. The notes don't just play outside you, they play within you. Even in dreams, melody appears. People report hearing songs in sleep, sometimes familiar, sometimes entirely new. The dreaming brain, free from distraction, often plays with melody like wind shapes leaves. These internal songs can be soft carriers of emotion. They reflect the feeling tone of the dream itself. You may not remember the melody upon waking, but the feeling lingers. A trace of the dream's emotional shape. And so tonight, as you rest, allow melody to do what it's always done. Let it lift and lower your breath. Let it carry your thoughts gently downward, like petals floating on water. The brain responds not with effort, but with surrender. It doesn't need to understand. It only needs to feel the shape. Because that's what melody truly is, a shape. A soft wave in air that matches the wave inside you. It is the voice of the unspoken. The language of what cannot be named. And as it plays, you are reminded that emotion is not something to be solved. It is something to be heard. To be followed. To be felt, and released. But even melody needs silence to breathe. And so we wonder, what is it about the space between the notes, the quiet, that moves us most? There is a silence that follows music. Not a void, but a fullness. As if the sound has left its outline in the air. As if the notes still echo, not in your ears, but in your chest. You felt it before, that hush after the final chord, when no one moves, no one speaks. It is not awkward. It is sacred. The silence is alive. This kind of silence is not blankness. It's not the mute screen before the film or the pause between loading. It is part of the structure itself. It is shaped. Intentional. In music, it is called rest, and rests are written with the same importance as the notes. They are the breaths between phrases. The shadows that make the light visible. The silence is not empty, it is listening. Your brain hears silence actively. It doesn't turn off when sound stops. In fact, in moments of musical pause, your auditory system becomes even more alert. It listens forward. It expects. It leans in. The superior temporal gyrus, the part of your brain involved in processing complex sound, is still at work, mapping the rhythm, tracking the pulse, predicting what should come next. And if nothing comes? Your brain holds that pause like a question. This is because your brain doesn't just react to sound, it predicts it. Every beat, every melody, every phrase is followed by expectation. Will the note rise? Will the beat land? When it doesn't, the brain notices. It marks the absence. The silence becomes a presence. A moment of anticipation, or rest, or reflection. Your nervous system doesn't disengage, it listens deeper. In fact, silence often holds more tension than sound. A well-timed pause before the drop of a drum. A break before the return of a chorus. These moments stretch time. They invite breath. They heighten awareness. Silence becomes suspense. A signal that something is about to happen, or just happened. In that gap, your mind fills in the meaning. But silence does more than create contrast, it soothes. When soft music ends and silence returns, your parasympathetic nervous system begins to engage. Your breath slows. Your heartbeat softens. Brain waves shift into slower rhythms. Studies show that even brief moments of silence between musical phrases can lower blood pressure and induce relaxation. The silence carries your body back toward calm. And yet, silence can also be emotional. A quiet piano fading into nothing. A pause after a heart-wrenching lyric. The brain holds onto the emotion even after the music stops. The limbic system, which governs your emotional responses, remains engaged. Silence amplifies feeling. It's the breath you take after crying. The space where a memory surfaces. The part of the story where your heart answers back. Perhaps this is why moments of musical silence feel so vulnerable. They expose something. In the absence of sound, you begin to hear your own thoughts. Your own pulse. Your own breath. The line between the music and your mind fades. The sound is no longer external, it has moved inside you. You carry it forward. In many traditions, silence is not just a pause, it is a practice. In meditation, silence is sacred. In prayer, it is where listening begins. In grief, silence becomes language. And in music, silence is composition. The great composers knew this. They wrote silence into their works like light into painting. A single held pause could say more than an entire stanza. Because silence doesn't interrupt the music, it completes it. Your brain also uses silence to mark transitions. It helps separate one phrase from the next, one thought from another. This is true in music, but also in memory. Just as music needs rests to breathe, your mind needs quiet to process. When sound stops, the default mode network, a set of brain regions associated with introspection and self-awareness, often activates. This is when memories return. When ideas bloom. When understanding sinks in. And not all silence is the same. There is the silence after music, full, resonant, still vibrating. There is the silence before music, empty, waiting, breathless. And there is the silence between, the rests that hold emotion in suspension. Your brain knows the difference. It senses what kind of silence it is. Whether it signals arrival or departure. Whether it's saying wait or listen. You've experienced this intuitively. You feel it in a live performance, the pause before the bow is drawn across the string. The silence before the choir exhales. These moments are electric, not in spite of silence, but because of it. The music is not gone, it's becoming. The silence is the soil, and the sound is the bloom. Even in your daily life, you crave these pauses. A quiet moment in a loud day. The hush of night after long hours of conversation. A walk without headphones. These silences restore something. They give the mind space to settle. To integrate. To listen inward. Because music isn't the only thing shaped by silence, you are, too. When you remove sound, your awareness expands. You notice the small things, the rustle of sheets, the shift of your breath, the hum beneath the quiet. These sounds are always there, but silence sharpens them. It brings them forward. And your brain begins to attune not just to what is missing, but to what is subtly present. In the brain, as in music, balance is everything. Just as melody needs rest, thought needs pause. Just as rhythm needs silence to feel grounded, emotion needs space to breathe. The pause is not a weakness, it is the support. The framework. The invitation to feel more deeply. So as you listen tonight, notice the silence between the notes. Let it hold you. Let it stretch time. Let it wash over your nervous system like a warm breeze. Do not rush to fill it. Do not fear its stillness. Within that quiet, your brain is still active, still shaping, still hearing the music even after it ends. Because what lingers after the final note is not emptiness. It is resonance. It is meaning. It is the echo of emotion held in air. And in that space, something in you exhales. And now that silence has settled the breath. We ask, what happens when sound and rhythm meet movement? What does it mean when your entire body becomes part of the music? Before you knew the words to a song, you knew how it made you move. Before your thoughts took shape, your hands reached for rhythm. Movement is the body's oldest way of listening and remembering. To dance is to let music pass through you, leaving behind something that never quite leaves. The first language you ever learned was not spoken, it was movement. Long before words formed on your tongue, your body was listening through motion. You kicked in rhythm to your mother's heartbeat. You reached toward voices. You swayed to the tone of a lullaby. Even now, long after you've learned to speak and to think, movement still speaks where language fails. Especially when music begins to play. Your body knows how to respond to rhythm. Not by instruction, but by instinct. You hear a beat, and something inside you leans forward. A foot taps. A shoulder shifts. A breath aligns. This isn't performance, it's permission. Music gives you the gentle authority to move, to feel, to remember. Because deep within your nervous system, there are traces of every time you've ever moved to sound. Dance is memory. Motion is memory. And your body carries more of it than you know. The brain processes rhythm not only with the ears but with the motor system. When you listen to music, especially rhythmically strong music, your basal ganglia, cerebellum, and motor cortex all become active. Even if you don't move. Even if you lie perfectly still. The body prepares. It rehearses. It remembers. It wants to join. This is because your brain doesn't separate music and movement, it links them. They are two sides of the same experience. This is why you dance at celebrations. Why athletes train to music. Why soldiers march in unison. Movement to rhythm isn't just art, it's regulation. It creates order within the body. It builds unity across groups. It restores synchrony when life feels chaotic. When you move with music, your internal rhythms begin to align, heartbeat, breath, emotion. Everything falls into pattern. And when you move to music, memory deepens. Studies show that pairing rhythm with movement enhances learning, especially in children. But even adults retain better when the body is engaged. This is because movement anchors memory. It gives emotion a physical echo. You may not remember the lyrics to a childhood song, but you remember how you twirled, how your arms opened, how you felt. That memory lives in your muscles. There's a reason certain songs make you want to move, even if you're tired. The brain recognizes rhythm as an invitation. It doesn't just hear it, it simulates it. Your mirror neurons, responsible for empathy and imitation, begin firing when you watch or imagine dance. This means your body reacts emotionally even to watching others move. It absorbs the movement as if it's your own. This is why dance can be profoundly healing. In dance therapy, movement becomes a bridge between emotion and awareness. Trauma that is buried in the body can rise gently when the body is invited to move in safety. The rhythm provides a container. The dance becomes expression, regulation, and release. You don't need to name the feeling, you only need to move through it. And dance doesn't have to be structured to matter. You don't need choreography. You don't need mirrors or music videos. All you need is sound, space, and presence. A small sway. A slow turn. A gentle rocking of the shoulders. These movements may seem small, but they speak volumes to the nervous system. They say, you are safe. You are alive. You are allowed to feel. And the brain listens. Your proprioceptive system, which helps you sense your body in space, is deeply activated by dance. It's what allows you to close your eyes and still know where your limbs are. When you move with music, this system lights up, reminding you that you are not just a head full of thoughts. You are a body. Whole. Present. Awake in time. This awareness brings a kind of calm. A gentle unity. You return to yourself. And this bodily memory extends beyond the present moment. The songs you danced to as a child live in your cells. The first slow dance. The song that played at a farewell. The movement you shared with someone now gone. These are not just mental memories, they are somatic. They are stored in your posture, in your breath, in the reflexes of your heart. And when you hear the song again, the dance begins before you can even name it. This is also why elders with dementia may forget names, but remember dances. The music starts, and the hands lift. The feet shuffle. A smile forms. Because the brain stores musical movement in deeply rooted networks. Even as language and short-term memory fade, rhythm and dance persist. They are among the last to leave. In ritual and culture, dance has always served a purpose beyond entertainment. It marks passage, into adulthood, into grief, into celebration. It connects people across time, across generations. To dance together is to share breath, to share time. It is one of the most ancient forms of belonging. And that's what music offers, a beat you can belong to. Even when dancing alone, you are never truly alone. You are moving with the rhythm that countless bodies have moved to before you. You are part of a lineage, of heartbeat, of pulse, of motion. You carry the memory of drum circles, of fireside stomps, of waltzes and marches. The music moves through you, but it did not begin with you. And it will not end with you either. Tonight, if you feel the music stir something in you, let it. Let your shoulders soften. Let your fingers drift. Let your breath become a quiet sway. It doesn't need to be visible. It doesn't need to be elegant. Even the smallest rhythm in your body is a form of dance. The shift of your chest as you exhale. The tilt of your head toward a sound you love. The music is already moving you. Let it move you deeper. So much of life is thinking. Planning. Remembering. But tonight is not for thinking. Tonight is for remembering how to feel, not in your mind, but in your skin. In your spine. In your steps. Because your body is not just a listener of music, it is an echo of it. It is the final instrument. The last note. The home where rhythm comes to rest. And as your thoughts slow, and your breath follows a quieter rhythm, let this truth settle softly inside you. You are not separate from the music. You are part of it. You always have been. Memories dissolve with time, but some sounds remain untouched. You forget what was said, but remember the song that played. The brain stores music in places time can't easily reach. And in that final note, something of you always lingers. Time is a soft dissolver. It wears down names, blurs faces, folds the past into something more distant with every breath. But even as these pieces fade, music stays. A single melody can summon a forgotten moment with exquisite clarity. A familiar tune opens a door you didn't know still existed. Somehow, the music remembers. Your brain doesn't store music like it stores facts or dates. Instead, it weaves it into emotion, into movement, into rhythm. It lives across many regions. The auditory cortex hears it, the motor cortex moves to it, the limbic system feels it, and the hippocampus, your brain's memory center, binds it all together. When one of these areas weakens, the others still hold pieces. This is why music outlasts other memories. It is not held in one place. It is held everywhere. In neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, this resilience becomes remarkably clear. A person may no longer recognize loved ones, may forget their own address, but when the music begins, they sing. They sway. They remember verses from long ago. This isn't magic. It's biology. Music memory is deeply entwined with emotional and procedural systems, which often remain intact longer than others. The music becomes a bridge, a way back into the self. Even for healthy brains, music forms unusually strong memories. It's not just what you heard, but how you felt. The emotion anchors the sound. The sound revives the emotion. A love song from your youth doesn't just recall a person, it brings back the smell of a summer night, the taste of a kiss, the feeling of becoming. This is episodic memory, stitched tightly with sonic thread. And it's not only melody that endures, it's rhythm, tone, texture. A beat from a childhood song can bring tears years later. A chime from a lullaby may quiet you, even as an adult. This is the power of auditory encoding. The brain absorbs sound quickly and deeply. Music, especially when repeated or emotionally charged, becomes a kind of neural signature, unique and enduring. When you listen to a song on repeat, your brain strengthens the network of neurons involved. It builds the pathway like a well-worn trail. The more you return, the easier it is to find your way back. This is called long-term potentiation, and it's one of the main ways your brain learns. Music, with its repetition, rhythm, and emotional pull, is a perfect teacher. And so even when everything else feels distant or unstable, music offers stability. It is a familiar thread in an unfamiliar room. A safe feeling in an unsafe time. A continuity that reassures the nervous system, you've been here before. In grief, music holds what you cannot yet say. In healing, it guides without demand. It's the sound of being remembered, even by yourself. This is why you return to certain songs in cycles. Not out of habit, but out of need. The music reminds you of something, not just an event, but a version of yourself. The you who danced freely. The you who cried quietly. The you who hoped. These versions still live within you. And music knows how to reach them. And it works both ways. You can also use music to plant memory. Students who study with a particular song often recall the material more easily when that same music plays again. This is context-dependent memory. Sound becomes a cue, a trigger. The song itself opens the drawer where the memory was filed. It's why you may recall an entire scene just by hearing the opening chord. And then, there is music's final gift, its way of comforting as you near the edge of forgetting. For those at the end of life, music becomes a companion, a balm, a way of saying goodbye without words. A familiar hymn. A favorite melody. These sounds offer more than beauty. They offer coherence. Closure. A sense of being carried across. The last note of a song lingers, not just in the air, but in your nervous system. You hold it, in your breath, in your blood, in your bones. It resonates long after the sound has stopped. This is reverberation, both physical and emotional. The note may be gone, but its meaning stays. And when you sing, especially with others, the memory deepens further. Shared sound creates shared memory. Group singing activates social bonding centers in the brain. It synchronizes heart rates. It synchronizes breath. It synchronizes memory. That's why certain songs are passed down generations, not just as tradition, but as inheritance. The music holds the memory of those who sang it before. So tonight, think of a song that has never left you. Not because you tried to hold on to it, but because it never needed to be held. It lives inside you. It shaped something. And when it returns, so does a part of you. Whole. Intact. Unforgotten. You are a vessel of music, shaped by the melodies you've known and the silences you've kept. You carry songs that once belonged to others. You carry echoes of your younger self. And even in sleep, your brain continues to hum, remembering, responding, reshaping. Music feels like truth, but it isn't always real. It manipulates time, rewrites memory, fakes emotion. And your brain, beautiful and trusting, believes every note. Why? Because sometimes the lie is what you need. You press play. And instantly, everything changes. The light in the room softens. The air thickens. Your thoughts begin to pull in strange directions, memory overlapping with imagination. You feel something real, heartbreak, awe, joy, but the source of that feeling isn't here. Not in the room. Not in your body. Not in the now. It's coming from somewhere else. From the speakers. From the sound. From a story someone else crafted, and you're feeling it as if it's your own. But here's the secret, the music is lying to you. It's bending time. It's reshaping memory. It's generating emotion that may have no origin at all. And your brain, beautiful, brilliant, easily enchanted, doesn't resist. It surrenders completely. You see, your brain is a pattern-seeking organ. It craves meaning in chaos, stories in noise. Music gives it both. Music provides structure, rhythm, repetition, resolution. But those structures don't always match reality. That slow, melancholic piano doesn't come from your life, but you feel like it does. That swelling crescendo isn't about you, but your body reacts as if it is. The chord progression doesn't know what you've lost, and yet it makes you cry like it remembers everything. This is the trick. Music feels personal, but it isn't. It is designed to feel that way. And the better it succeeds, the more invisible its craft becomes. When you listen to a sorrowful melody, your brain may generate sadness, not from memory, but from suggestion. MRI scans show that even without lyrics, certain intervals or keys can activate regions in your brain tied to grief, nostalgia, or longing. It's not that you remembered something sad, it's that the music planted that sadness in you, like a seed you didn't know you were carrying. That's not manipulation in the malicious sense. But it is illusion. Constructed. Beautifully false. Even time itself bends under music's influence. Songs in minor keys can slow your perception of time. Bright, fast rhythms make it race. And when you're emotionally immersed, your brain's sense of duration distorts completely. A 3-minute track can feel like an entire chapter of your life. A 10-second lyric looped in your head can seem eternal. Why? Because your internal clock, the way your brain slices and measures experience, is overwritten by rhythm. Music doesn't follow your time. You follow its. And then there's memory. We think of memory as a fixed record, fragile but factual. But music shows us otherwise. Play a nostalgic song from your teenage years, and your brain doesn't just remember, it re-experiences. The room you were in. The smell. The heartbreak. But here's the twist, every time you recall that song-linked memory, you're not replaying the original, you're rewriting it. Slightly distorted. Slightly changed. Enhanced by the music's emotional cue. What you remember now may be more poetic than true. A little sadder. A little sweeter. A little more cinematic than life actually was. And still, you trust it. Because the emotion feels real. And in your brain, emotion validates truth. If you feel it strongly, you believe it deeply, even if it never actually happened that way. Music exploits this in the gentlest way. It becomes the author of your internal myths. It stitches together sensation, memory, and mood, and calls it you. So what happens when the music lies, not just emotionally, but narratively? Film composers know this well. The same visual can feel romantic, terrifying, or absurd, depending entirely on the music that accompanies it. Your brain assigns meaning based on sound, before it even finishes processing the image. You're not reacting to the story. You're reacting to the soundtrack of the story. And you do this with your own life. You walk alone at night with a slow instrumental, and suddenly the world feels tragic, reflective. You play a beat-heavy track in the gym, and your sense of capability skyrockets. You cue up a dramatic orchestral score while staring out a rainy window and begin to believe you're in the third act of your personal movie. Are you? Or is the music building a world that doesn't exist, one your body falls into anyway? This is why marketers use music to sell. Why politicians use anthems to sway. Why propaganda films use violins and choirs to anchor false memories. Your emotional brain listens before your rational one does. The sound gets in first. The story follows. And you are not immune. None of us are. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the lie is part of the medicine. When you are grieving, you don't always want accuracy. You want understanding. You want a sound that matches your ache. When you are lost, you want something that gives shape to your drifting. When you're numb, you want music to remind your body how to feel. And so you let it lie to you, gently, lovingly. You let it take you somewhere that isn't exactly real, but is real enough to help you breathe. Maybe that's not deception. Maybe that's a form of care. Because not every truth is healing. And not every fiction is harmful. Some of the most comforting moments in your life were built on imagined soundscapes. A lyric that gave you the courage to keep going. A beat that made you feel alive again. A melody that said exactly what no one else could. Those weren't facts. But they were truthful. The brain is not a courtroom. It doesn't always seek facts. It seeks coherence. Emotional coherence. That feeling when everything inside aligns, even if the story it aligns with isn't literal. Music creates that illusion. It bends reality just enough to help you survive it. So yes. Music lies. But it lies with grace. With artistry. With purpose. It warps your perception of time. It edits your memories. It simulates emotions that don't belong to you. But in doing so, it makes your inner world bearable. Expressive. Shareable. Alive. And when you press pause, the feeling doesn't fade. Not immediately. The lie lingers, and with it, a kind of meaning. A beauty born not from truth, but from resonance. You return to silence. And yet, something remains. A warmth. A thread. A thought that wasn't there before. You were just tricked. And it was wonderful. But what happens when the music isn't just lying to you, but also learning from you? What if the next song is chosen not by your heart, but by something quietly watching it? Shall we find out? It hears what you skip, what you cry to, what you replay alone. Your playlist becomes your pulse. But the machine is learning something you haven't said yet. Who's really choosing the next song, you or the algorithm? You open the app. No thinking. No planning. Just a flick of the thumb and a playlist begins. It knows what you want. Before you do. The first song feels oddly perfect, like someone read your day, your mood, your silence. The second track stirs something you hadn't named yet, a longing that hadn't surfaced until just now. The next one hits you. Not hard, not loud, but accurately. Unsettlingly. It's the kind of song you would have chosen. Maybe even the one you needed. But you didn't choose it. The algorithm did. You are not imagining things. These platforms, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, streaming radios, don't just play music. They read you. Every second you listen, scroll, pause, or skip sends a signal. Not just data about taste, data about you. Your mood, your habits, your silence, your grief. Your need for comfort. Your impulse to escape. These aren't guesses anymore. They are predictions. And the more you listen, the more accurate they become. Your heartbeat has become legible. And the music adapts to it in real time. Behind the scenes, neural networks process billions of data points, not just across users, but across you. What you listen to when you're tired. What you avoid when you're heartbroken. What tempo you need at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night after a day that drained something unnameable from you. And it gives it to you. Not randomly. Not kindly. Systematically. The songs you receive are not pulled from the stars. They are built on mirrors. Mirrors of yourself, fractured across millions of other listeners whose patterns resemble yours in subtle ways. And as those patterns become clearer, your music becomes a reflection you didn't design, but do recognize. This is where it gets strange. What happens when the music that moves you most wasn't made for you? Not by a person, not for a feeling, but by a code that pieced together your past behaviors and fed back a melody to match. And what if that melody feels more real than anything you've heard in weeks? Is it still art? Is it still yours? You listen again. Your body doesn't care that it was recommended. Your spine tingles anyway. Your breath slows anyway. Emotion rises anyway. Because biology doesn't need permission. It responds. To rhythm. To tone. To repetition. Whether it comes from a friend, a memory, or a machine. And here's where the story turns again. The algorithm isn't just reflecting. It's shaping. Over time, the music you receive changes how you feel, how you remember, how you react. The patterns tighten. The emotions become sharper. The genres drift subtly toward what works, not artistically, but emotionally. The system isn't asking what you want. It's asking what will keep you listening. And often, what keeps you listening, is what keeps you feeling. Not always what's best. Not always what's healthy. Just what's predictable. What's powerful. It knows your heartbreak songs. It knows your motivation songs. It learns when you listen to angry music, and whether that leads you to calm down, or spiral deeper. And soon, without realizing, you're following a path laid for you, not by chance, but by code. This isn't dystopia. It's design. Music as mirror. Music as manipulator. Your preferences become feedback. Your emotions become fuel. But here's the part the machine doesn't understand. You change. You grow. You mourn. You forgive. You forget. The person who looped that song on cold nights may no longer exist in the same way. But the algorithm remembers. And if you're not careful, it can pull you back, gently, efficiently, into the echo of someone you've already outgrown. So how do you keep the music yours? You choose. Intentionally.